Folks, welcome to the culture. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Let's jump right into it. First and foremost, there was a major announcement that came about yesterday from about Twitter, the social media platform, where they have decided to move forward on suspending the accounts of many journalists as a way to cut down the conversation about what's going on with Twitter. We're talking about what's going on even with the business practices of Elon Musk. And it's got many people asking the question, Elon, is this the free speech that you talked about? Yeah, this is exactly what he talked about. Let me break it down to you. Then we're going to bring in our tech analyst, Shireen Mitchell, to give us some insight into the situation. But here's the report, folks. Take a look at this. According to the reports, Twitter on Thursday, they suddenly suspended several high-profile journalists who covered the platform and Elon Musk. Hours after the suspensions took hold, Musk faced off with one of the journalists he suspended in a Twitter Space audio discussion before an audience of more than 30,000 listeners. The suspended journalists, along with several others, found a backdoor way onto the platform through the website's audio function. He said, quote, "You docs, you get suspended. End of story. That's it." Explaining his latest policy to the group before he left minutes after having joined the discussion. Now, Musk was referring to Twitter's latest rule change about accounts that track private jets, including one owned by Musk himself, which was put in place Wednesday. Now, the discussion revolved around the suspension of numerous journalists, the accounts of Ryan Mack of the New York Times, Donnie O'Sullivan of CNN, Drew Harwell of the Washington Post, Matt Binder of Mashable, Micah Lee of The Intercept, Steve Herman of Voice of America, and independent journalists Aaron Rupert, Keith Olbermann, and Tony Webster had all been suspended as of Thursday evening. Let's go to and take a look at this, folks. Twitter suspends these journalists. They've been covering and been very critical about Elon Musk and the direction that he's taken the social media platform. Let's go to our tech analyst. You know her on that digital sister. We always are happy to have the opportunity to chat with her. Our sister Shireen Mitchell. Shireen, how you feeling this afternoon?
I'm feeling good this afternoon, but I know we have a lot to talk about in terms of what Elon thinks what free speech is, because I swear people don't understand the difference between your ability to operate on platforms and what actual free speech means. So let's go.
Let's go. So let's break this thing down, because to the outside world, Shireen, when you're talking about free speech, and he is, you know, we talked about this before, he has claimed the title of being a free speech abolutist. I think that's how you pronounce it. There you go. But he's been this advocate of free speech. But then when a speech gets a little bit critical of him and his business practices, you gotta I'm not talking about that speech. I'm talking about other speech. How does Elon Musk justify this? Because this seems like he went back to not the chief of Twit, but the chief of Petty.
So yes, first of all, he went into spaces. If you think about that, the journalists were having their own conversation without him, and he decided to go into spaces in the first place. So that's the first thing that people need to realize what happened there. But the other piece is that, these are people who had critical analysis of him. And by the way, that's what the freedom of the press is about. It's the right to criticize your government. It's the right to tell, media journalistic stories. And what he's basically saying that those people who are journalists are not given the same rights as what is afforded them in the First Amendment. He's bastardized the First Amendment and free speech to such a way that people don't realize what it actually means. And when he used this and justified it by the doxing framework, and so like this private jet conversation that people keep using, he's basically saying that they were avoiding the ban. They were actually violating data privacy conversations when actually jet information is actually public information. Everyone can get access to that. So it's just any other journalistic tool that reporting comes from. So the fact that he said that he was being doxxed was very fascinating, because it's like, do you know how many people on this platform has been doxxed? There are so many people who have had asked for content to be pulled down. That's their address, their phone number. We have tracked many instances that this has happened to regular users, particularly women of color who get targeted. And most of the time, nothing happens. Those accounts don't get suspended, and even the tweets themselves are not removed. So when I hear this, it's the irony of it. For him to say, well, y'all not like any, I think the words he said is that y'all are just like anyone else. If you dox people, then you get removed like everyone else. Well, all the other accounts that doxed are not removed. So even that statement alone, by itself is a lie, because they're not diligently doing that for everyone. He is basically unilaterally making these decisions. And be clear, when he was asked those questions, one of the things he did is, as he exited the Twitter Spaces stopped working.
Wow.
So those journalists were no longer able to continue their conversation in Twitter Spaces, because he actually dismantled it. And by the way, they weren't the only ones affected. It was like a system-wide change, right? So that tells you he doesn't honestly believe in freedom of speech, because why would you impact someone else, other groups of people, just because you don't like the conversation that's being had about you?
Yeah. So how does that come across to the general public? Because right now, depending on which side of the aisle you sit on, some people might applaud it and some people might, condemn it. But in the larger picture, as we're in this space of trying to get a better understanding of what free speech means, what it means to have these social media platforms, like whether they should be regulated by the government or whether they should stay as private companies, how does this fit in that part of the conversation?
So I think there's a distinction I think people need to understand clearly, right? Your freedom of speech, which is what the First Amendment actually protects you for, is your right to grievance, your right to protest, your right to say anything about the government and not be punished by the government. What Elon is doing is a level of bastardization of that. He's basically saying that, anyone can say anything they want, including hate speech, including things that are violent, including incitement to violence on his platform, and he's not going to do anything about it. However, in this one or two cases of doxing, particularly important people or people he care about, then he'll change the rules, and at that point suspend accounts. When it aligns itself with regulation, what this means is that now, regulators have to pay attention to the disparate aspects of those rules being changed, because their own terms of service is supposed to protect all users. So if you're basically picking and choosing which users you're going to protect, well, now we're having a different conversation, and whether or not regulators need to come in and discuss that and maybe look at ways in which this, because he's operating in this platform as if he is the end all be all to every decision on this platform, and that changes a lot of things.
It changes a lot of things, absolutely. And Shireen, we're going to take a quick pause, but when we come forward, I want us to talk about that level of regulation, because at one point there was a discussion about him creating a quote unquote a moderation council. Then I read another report that said that's not going to happen. So I'm wondering, what's going to be the system of accountability? What are going to be the checks and balances for this? Because he's putting out information. Some stuff is like, Elon, we don't work for Twitter. Why are you talking to us in this tech jargon? Well, today we're doing this and we're doing that with the system to make sure that the server. Elon, we don't work for Twitter.
Exactly.
So I want to get your take on that, and plus we'll get some comments from our online culture crew. Folks, we're just getting started. Stay with us. We're going to continue the conversation to talk about the Twitter ban of the Twitter suspension of journalists and the impact that it has on this idea of free speech. We want to hear from you. Post your comments in our chat, and let's continue the conversation with Shireen Mitchell here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now
We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Folks, we have been talking about Twitter suspension of journalists, and this is the big story that came out yesterday as of Thursday evening. There were a number of major journalists that worked for reputable media agencies who were suspended as a result of their being critical of Elon Musk and how he's been handling the leadership of the social media platform. So we're talking about it and the implications that it has on the idea of free speech, and so much more. We're checking in with tech analyst Shireen Mitchell, and it's always a pleasure to talk to Shireen. Shireen, really quickly before we get to our comments from our online culture crew, what about this moderation council? What about these? What are the checks and balance systems right now? Because he threw out this idea initially when he first, bought the company. There was talk about having a council of staff members and users and other folks to kind of help to moderate that. Hasn't happened. We know that hate speech has gone up over like I heard some crazy number like 200, 300%.
500%.
500%. Crazy. You couldn't even, there's no grade for that. But all of this stuff, but what about the accountability factor? What system is in place? Where has Twitter put in place to serve as a checks and balance for Elon and for the platform?
So I want everyone to realize that when he first got in there, one of the first things he did in the first 2 weeks was to get rid of all the content moderation team. He got rid of the content moderation team. He got rid of the human rights team. He got rid of every team that actually catered to content moderation and protecting users on the platform. And this includes the teams that stopped violent shares of information, that targeted groups that helped organize the insurrection, groups that they were stopping that were, basically state sanctioned targeted accounts and executions and massacres. Like, there were big things that these teams were actually working on. And in the first 2 weeks, he got rid of those. He was basically saying he's going to come up with his own model of that. And that has not happened. They used to have a trust and safety council. And if I'm not mistaken, Monday, he got rid of the trust and safety council, which was a group of organizations that would share information about concerns that Twitter should be paying attention to. So what has become painfully clear to me and others is that he has no interest in human rights violations. He has no interest in protecting people and the users on this account. He is personally making distinctions about who should be protected on the platform and who should not. And that's an individual decision based on him and his perspective and his ideology, which is extremely dangerous on so many levels. To have one person thinking that they can justify a global interaction of harm and that he alone, think about that. Anyone who says that they alone can fix it or they alone can determine what's harmful and what's not is also problematic. one of the things he's been doing is trying to do these polls to justify his actions, to make it look like it's not just him and that the community is also agreeing and engaging with him. That's, I think, in his head, some ways of moderating. Because I think today, if I'm not mistaken, he actually tried to do a poll to say if anyone did some doxing, should they be reinstated or not? And the poll didn't work out the way he wanted to. So he did a separate poll. So like that just tells you that like if he doesn't get the response he wants, he's already decided on what he wants to do. He's actually pretending like the community has some insights or has some input, and they don't.
Right. And very quickly, because I want to get to these comments, but what I'm thinking about, Shireen, is this idea, if he doesn't like how journalists are being critical of him, his use of private jets and all this stuff, what about for Black journalists, for Black media in particular, when you start thinking about the things that we could put out there as we talk about the issues of race, as we talk about social justice and all of those things, I'm thinking that might actually be qualified as something he would say is doxing and go as far as say, well, we don't need that level of consciousness. We don't need that type of talk. Is that a concern that you have as well?
Absolutely. If anyone missed his tweet after he got booed, he literally tweeted, "This woke mind virus needs to be defeated."
I saw that.
If you think about what Black journalists are always trying to do, they're trying to amplify the stories that affect communities of color, Black communities, like what we're talking about now, and the impacts. And the challenge that I have is that most of those communities, groups like me and others, have been talking about the harms being inflicted on the platform, had talked about the doxing, has been talking about the harassment. But he is actually putting people back on who not only participate in the insurrection to overthrow the government, right? I think people need to understand that, but also people who were doxing and harming and threatening other users because they had a quote unquote difference of opinion, is what he keeps saying it is. But when you actually are someone who doesn't believe that anyone else have the right to exist in this country, that's not a difference of opinion.
Yeah, that's gone way further along than just a difference of opinion. Absolutely.
That's not a debate.
No, I would agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Let's check in with our crew. Shalinda, you checked in and on the chat, kicking us off this afternoon. You said you think evil Elon, #EvilElon, would be busy with his companies, but no. Well, this is one of his companies, so he's been busy with taking it down.
you have to think, and I love the way that she said evil Elon. I call him apartheid Clyde. So apartheid Clyde.
Damn.
He came from an apartheid state in South Africa, right? So he comes here claiming to be an African American when he's an Afrikaan. And we know Afrikaans are very different in their perspective of the world. So he comes to the Western America framework and he behaves in a way that like he's running a business, but he's running a business and basically as if he's running a business in the apartheid state and in the authoritarian state. And that's part of the problem. If you think about much of what he's doing with this platform, it's a very much authoritarian state about the business in itself. There were instances when he got into position where even his lawyers were saying that, like, as if he didn't have to respond to the FTC and their dissent decrees, as if there is no legal recourse that will affect him just because he took the business private. That says a lot about the way that he sees what he's doing on this platform. It also says a lot about what he thinks he can do to the users on this platform. And if we haven't seen the stuff that he's already done to the workers, many of the workers that's still at Twitter that couldn't leave are people who are here on H-1B visas. And so you have to think about the level of authoritarian and absolute decision-making he believes he has, which I find really ironic because I don't think he had that same level of decision-making at Tesla, but he definitely has it now because he bought everything out and then got rid of the board, got rid of all the teams. So he's operating this company as if he's a sole proprietor.
Wow. Let's go to Remixtress. You said when the village idiot buys the village. Damn, there it is. Damn. Thank you so much, Remixtress. Deidre, you checked in and said Elon Musk is a dictator on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
He definitely operates that way, which is why he's fine with bringing on, I'm sorry, y'all, but Agent Orange 45, like, why is that okay? It's okay because he believes that those type of behaviors are acceptable behaviors. And if you see what he's doing, it's a very much a mimic of that same kind of behavior. Anyone that criticized, Trump was, accosted. They were targeted. They were threatened. His behavior with these journalists are exactly the same way. He's threatening them. He's basically saying, I can remove you from my platform. Now, by the way, they still can speak and they can still, do their job. He's not keeping them from doing their job in its full context. But what he is doing is saying, if you don't say anything nice to me on my platform, in my business, you are not allowed here. So that means this is someone who's been operating with no one checking them about their behavior, no one saying no to them, no one criticizing them. And that's dictatorship and authoritarianism.
Absolutely. So we got about 30 seconds left, Shireen. What do we take from this? Like, how do we, as users? Because I saw one, and I think I saw a young man by the name of Victor Shi. He works he's a Biden delegate. He's like in his 20s, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to let you push me off of this platform. You're a bully. We're going to stay on. He's encouraging other young people to stay on. Should we stay on? What do we do with all of this at this point?
I do think that there needs to be some level of pushback. Like, if we just all step away, then aren't we sort of kind of giving the space away to white supremacists? Because that's who he's bringing back on. That's who he's catering to. That's who he's allowing to say whatever they want. Our ability to say whatever we want is questionable, right? And now there's a process now in place that can push us off. If we get kicked off, it's nothing different than any other time that we've been kicked off. So my opinion is we should hold the ground. We should make sure that people see exactly how the rules are extremely different for us than others. People with money, people who believe in white supremacy, people who believe that other people don't have the right to exist or the same right of equality in this country. We need to make sure that those parts of the conversation are still being said, whether journalists are present to say it or not. Because even in some of these instances, I'm not sure they were telling that story the way they should have in the first place, when they were all doing these beat sweeteners about him and Tesla. And now they're realizing how problematic he is and how much he would target them if you don't tell the story he likes.
Absolutely. Shireen Mitchell, you can find her online at Digital Sister. She's a tech analyst, and she's doing a fantastic job trying to keep on the online space truly free, even if it's beyond Elon. But Shireen, we truly appreciate you. Always happy to have you on, and we'd love to bring you back on as we continue to look out at how this platform develops. But folks, make sure you check her out. Definitely check her out. All right, Shireen, thank you so much for being so good for the culture.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take another pause. When we come forward, let's move forward on talking about the January 6th committee. There's some more conversation about the hearing, the report, and we're going to be checking in with Online Culture crew Corinna Denise to give her thoughts about what she's seeing with this committee and hear from you as well. So stay with it. That conversation is up next here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about cannabis right now and the church. Yes, out of all places, these are the two parts of a major conversation that's happening in both faith circles and in the Black community. As Pastor Jamal Bryant, who serves as the pastor of the great church that Reverend Eddie Long down in Atlanta did, that served before his passing. But Pastor Jamal Bryant is once again back in the headlines. My brother, man, oh man, he has brought up an idea of, as he serves as the pastor of New Birth Ministries, he's brought up this idea that the church needs to be a part of the cannabis movement. That's all I'm going to say. I want to hear for himself what the pastor say about the church and cannabis. Check this out.
Looking for people that smell like weeds. No, really, is... New Birth is the largest land-owning Black church in America. Wow. And so my position to my deacons is, why aren't we not raising cannabis? I'll be able to bring in Black males. They're able to do it legally. I'm teaching them farming.
Oh my God.
I'm helping them to enhance the ecosystem. This is the kind of conversation. So if the guy, Black boy in Bankhead said, they growing weed at the church, where do I join?
Yes.
I don't need no pamphlet for him.
I got 5 on it. I like how they edit that clip. Let's bring in my culture crew members today. We've been chatting with Nira Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast. Also, we got B Fly joining us as well, who is a filmmaker and an artist. Look at her. Look like she just stepped out of Black Hollywood. There we go.
You're crazy. Let me adjust my shit.
And we got our cannabis doctor. She is the author of the book. Courage in Cannabis, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, who is here to talk to us. I got 3 dynamic ladies on the panel to talk about this. Black women, talk about the controversial view that Pastor Jamal Bryant had put forth that has gotten everybody talking. First and foremost, Dr. Bridget, you are actually, I got to remind folks, you're just not some quack. You are a board-certified family physician.
Yes.
You have been practicing medicine for a long time. You have been doing a lot of research on the benefits of cannabis, and you have also, I've seen you have put together some videos to talk about CBD for children. I mean, you've been really studying this, and of course, you've been put out this book, Courage in Cannabis. We talk about the inspiring stories, but this idea of the church and cannabis, first and foremost, is this new? Is this something new? And based on all of your research and understanding of how the cannabis movement continues to grow in this country, is this a new idea? And should this be something that we should really consider?
Well, it's definitely controversial, to say the least. When I saw this clip that popped up, I think, like most people, a little taken aback, a little concerned, and the first thought is that it doesn't fit into what churches should be doing. However, I think it's much different from that. I think if we take a closer look, what Dr. Bryant is suggesting is honestly not that far off beat, and actually could be the window to generational wealth for Black people, and can actually allow us to take our wellness into our own hands.
So it's controversial, but it still should be considered.
Very much so. I mean, we live in a culture where other ethnic groups come together and they build wealth, right? So Asians do it, Jews have done it, Italians have done it. Consider this. This is our casinos. If we do this well, this is our opportunity. You know, Native Americans were given basically their reparation was land, and they built casinos on that land and were able to build a massive amount of wealth for themselves by working together. And there's really no other organization in the Black community that can really bring us together the way the Black church can. And with financial literacy, with working together, with approaching this in the correct way, this can be our casinos and this can be our generational wealth.
Now, I just want to make it clear, folks, that we have reached out to Pastor Brian, and we're working on getting the good pastor to come on to the show to talk about these views a little bit more. So we just wanted to have a starting conversation, and I wanted to have it with my sister, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, because I wanted to get past the emotionalism of this, Dr. Bridget, and get to the heart of the matter, which is you're saying that this could be a vehicle for economic vehicle. You're also saying that this could be a cultural shift, right?
Yes.
Because it's the church. We have a lot of views on a lot of different things, but when it comes to the institution of church, then those views, I would even go as far as to say, Dr. Bridget, they're very conservative. They're not very liberal. And I'm talking about among Black folks. Would you agree or disagree with me on that?
Absolutely. The talks that I've done when I've been allowed to go into churches and talk about CBD and talk about cannabis. It's a rough room. It's a rough room, right? But so many of us live in pain because we don't want to take narcotics, because we're afraid of addiction. And there is medical possibilities that we can get involved in here. Keep in mind that the cannabis sales that are predicted for 2023 are $30 billion. We own, as Black people, maybe 2% in the industry. This is an opportunity. At first, just like everybody else, I was taken aback and questioned and wondered who would think about growing cannabis. And keep in mind, whether it's cannabis, whether it's hemp, there's a number of different ways to approach this.
Yeah.
But this is an opportunity. And the churches, to be honest, yes, churches are conservative. Black churches can be incredibly conservative, but we all need to grow and grow up. And there is no other more powerful vehicle for us as people to bring us together than the Black church.
Let me ask you this from an economics point of view. If the church gets into a space where it's looking at doing something for economic benefit and gain, and we already know that folks already have some negative views about the pastor who drives the Bentley, the pastor who goes on lavish trips, the pastor, we've talked about this pastor out of New York. You don't have to talk about Creflo Dollar. You could talk about some of these Black pastors. How does those two situations reconcile with one another? Folks already saying, "Oh, the pastor getting money off the people. The congregation is poor, but he's not or she's not." And now we're going to bring in an entity that's a part of a $30 billion money making machine. How do you reconcile that?
Well, checks and balances are going to be needed, clearly, right? And there are groups and institutions that talk about financial literacy for the Black church. The National Black Church Initiative is about bringing financial literacy into the church for the people. But this idea of, the pastor with the Bentley and growing so much personally, this will be the opportunity for pastors to literally spread the wealth. And so I agree. There's some bad ideas and stigma around sometimes the Black pastors and across the country. This is the opportunity to correct that and to spread that. And like I said, not just for that congregation, not just for those people, but to allow it to grow within the people that participate in that program. And there's no reason why we cannot be a bigger part of this $30 billion industry. There's no reason why we are living in pain and allowing our elders to live this way.
Should pastors use the scriptures to justify this, or should this be kept as separate, saying, look, this is a church idea, this is not an ordained idea? Because how do you present that to your congregation? You say, oh, go to this particular scripture, and he says, use this from the land. Because I can hear some pastors saying it, Dr. Bridger. I can hear some pastors trying to look for scripture to justify this. But I mean, if you're going to just have a cannabis situation, let it be just the business of a church rather than trying to make it seem like God had ordained us for all of us to smoke and get high. You know what I'm saying?
And
like
it doesn't have to be about the smoking and getting high. It can be about correcting the wrongs that have been done to us as a people. And so do I think that there should be some separation between the church pew and the the drying and growing of flower? Probably, but there is quite a bit of scripture that does refer to cannabis, and it's in no means in a negative light. So if that supports it, fair enough. But this is an opportunity for the power of the church to really come into play. And churches have been involved in healthcare since forever, and they've gained quite a bit of money from it. This is an opportunity to spread that wealth.
Absolutely. And then we know also because of just even with the recent pandemic, there was a whole conversation about churches and the vaccination. Should members of churches get vaccinated? So this is another layer to the conversation. All right, let me bring back Culture Crew member Nira Muhammad, B Fly. Nira, I'm gonna start with you on this one because I know where you stand. And you know Pastor Brian. Nira, you know Pastor Brian. So we also know the vein in which the pastor is kind of working from on this piece. Again, we're hoping to bring the pastor on, so I'm gonna get that worked out. But B, what's your take on this, Nira?
Faraji, cannabis has been unsickling my cells since literally 1996. Okay. And so medically, I have gone through so much. Legally, I have gone through so much and am here, still holding firm to my knowledge and waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to the wisdom. At the end of the day, the doctor is right. We do not have to live in pain. And so Black people have this idea about Black pain, that we are supposed to be married to it. And so Jamal Bryant is a part of the, what will we say? We've always called him a part of the prosperity preachers. Okay. So we have certain preachers, we have certain congregations that want you to be prosperous. And then we do have some congregations that want you to stay in Black pain. All right. So it's like, so you really have to determine, who are you? Do you actually want to live pain-free in other ways that have nothing to do with the pharmaceutical industry, or do you want to continue to live in a very Black taxed way, And so it's like, so this is the time to make those decisions, but we also have to keep our dope boy in mind, because we have been literally crucifying the dope boy. Absolutely. As long as the dope boy has existed, as long as the dope boy has been literally creating its own, her own pipeline to economic freedom.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right? So now that we've collected all of this data, we're running into this commercial process with it, but we're still criminalizing. Like the state of California still has yet to release my 2 strikes. I have 2 federal strikes from the state of California that has still yet to be released. I was expounded from the state for 10 years, my home state. Understand what we have gone through in the name of cannabis. And so it's like,
I want to get Nira's take on this before we take our next pause. Nira, what's your take on this? Because this is really the intersectionality of 2 very highly sensitive conversations within Black America. We haven't fully embraced the cannabis culture in Black America. And we know that church culture is.
I'm 33 years old, and I'm still like afraid of like smoking around your dad. Like that's how ingrained like the fear of like cannabis is. Like I still like, and it's something that I love, and I still feel like a stigma being a Black woman who smokes cannabis. So that's on one end. Then on the other end, I have a father who overdosed and died off of morphine, prescription pills. So when you have a parent that died from prescription pills, you have a different view of the pharmaceutical industry and of medicine. So for one, I'm always going to be team pro cannabis, whether it's in CBD form, whether it's in gummy form, whether it's in a topical form, whatever it is, whether you need it for sleep, whatever. There are a lot of different things that it can be used for. I know for me, it was for anxiety and for the fact that I have celiac disease, and it really helps my appetite with my weight. And so many, it helps. That's that.
Yeah.
I know Jamal. So, you know, this isn't far-fetched for me getting this from Jamal. That's one. I do, I appreciate what he's trying to do in terms of bringing in Black boys, Black men in the congregation in terms of helping with the economic wealth. I am hoping that this isn't a situation where you see Jamal and all the other pastors all of a sudden fattening their pockets and you don't see that wealth trickle down to the people. Do I agree that this is going to bring men into the want to be Christian? No. But do I agree that it's going to at least bring them to the table and have more conversations? Yes, I do believe that. So I don't know. I don't really know what Jamal is trying to do in terms of like him saying it's going to bring people to the church. I don't really agree with that. I don't think it's going to make people want to be Christian because again, you still have all these contradictions and hypocrisies within the church. So I don't think that this is not going to be a magical cure for like getting millennials to come to church, because millennials, we are the generation that's like, nah, church isn't what it used to be or what you said it was. And we are pulling away from church and organized religion. And I don't think that this is going to make people want to go to the church because we've already been smoking weed. We've already been, you know, but I do think it'll be a good avenue if it is something that allows them to get into the business of marijuana. Okay?
Absolutely. We got to take a quick pause, Doc. When we come back, I want to, take some of the comments from our online culture crew, continue to take your analysis and B's and Nira's analysis as folks, as we talk about this, the church and cannabis. Reverend Jamal Bryant of New Birth Ministries has put forth an idea to Black Americans saying that the church should be involved in the growing cannabis movement. What do you think? Post your comments in our chat as we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Black Star Network, and we'll continue to have the conversation on the other side. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, we've been having a conversation about the church and cannabis as Reverend Jamal Bryant of New Birth Ministries, a church in Atlanta, Georgia. he has put forth a proposal to Black folks and to the rest of America, making the point saying that the church should be involved in the cannabis movement. Why not? He said growing weed may help bring Black men to church. So if that's how you get Black men to church, then why not have cannabis being sold by the church? We've been checking in with a family physician and author of the book Courage in Cannabis, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams. We also been checking in with two dynamic Black women who are advocates of the conversations. Nira Muhammad, who is the host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast, and B Fly, who serves as a filmmaker, and she is co-founder of Black Waterhouse Productions. Sisters, I want to get some comments from our online culture crew as we have this conversation, which is very, very interesting. And I've looked in at our chats on our YouTube stream as we're streaming right now. It don't seem like too many people, Dr. Bridget, are really opposed to this idea. They're like, I'll get high and listen to God at the same time, Yeah, your eyes are rolling.
I'm sorry, Percy. I don't get how this is going to bring Black men to church, though. Like,
no,
it's not going to bring Black men to church. Like, that's not going to happen, Jamal. Like, you're using that as an excuse to make money, and I don't. Now, where I'm kind of like running into an issue with this, like, I want him to do it for the sake of Black people should be a part of the cannabis industry. Personally, I want to know how I can get involved in dispensaries and in investing in the cannabis industry. I would love that. I just want to just be real and just say that shit. Like, just say that it's about economics. Like, don't say this is about bringing Black men to church, because what does the cannabis thing have to do with them getting up on a Sunday morning and coming to your service? Those don't correlate for me, personally.
I guess that and Nira, I guess is like, once you get there, then you get into the space, you get into the parking lot, you get to where the plant is being sold. B, you saying no, Dr. Bridget, you saying no. Look, I'm just trying to think it out. Nira brings up the logistics. I'm just trying to think out the details.
I'm gonna bring it up.
I think a big part of this, though, like the church has been involved with politics forever, and that has nothing to do with salvation, right? And I think we may be putting more on Pastor Bryant than he actually meant. But if this is about economic growth, I think that this is a conversation worth having. If this is about trying to dangle a carrot in front of people's faces so they pay more and give tithe more, then I think we might be missing something here. But I think the most important part, and I think this is what we're all coming together on, is that education around cannabis and hemp and health is absolutely crucial here, because the stigma and reefer madness is alive and well. We need to change how we think about cannabis. We need to change our perception and the stigma so that we can see it in a different light that allows us to grow instead of being traumatized by the war on drugs that we've experienced from the 70s and 80s.
And I'm so happy you brought that up, Dr. Bridget, because my other thing, and I'm going to get to a couple of comments, but one of the things that kept coming out of my mind, especially as I was listening to you, B Fly, and Nira, is the government still regulates this, right? So how do we trust the government to kind of give us the quote unquote the purest form of this, so we can get the benefits that you often talk about in a way where it like, just like what we've seen maybe with other medicines, we don't become so addicted that we lose function or we lose something. You know what I mean, Doc? And I hope I'm trying to phrase this question the best way. There's a trust factor that I think that we need to discuss, because we're Black folks ain't bringing in the cannabis.
Mm-hmm. But I will say that, from my teachings, and I was just in Atlanta in October with the Cannabis Literacy Club, which are Morehouse graduates that put together a educational forum so that we can be educated and know cannabis well. So there are opportunities for us to grow here. And I don't know if we should always trust the government when it comes to this. We know the problems that the government does or brings to Black people when we allow them to be in control of our wellness and our health and every other aspect of our life. So the idea of us being in control of our own finances, of our own wellness, from my teaching from when I was down in Atlanta, you get some of these young men and women that are excited about something that they understand and love and are learning about.
Yeah.
We can grow this. We can process this. We can fight it we can be our own industry if we put it back in our own hands. Africans have been involved with cannabis since the 1500s, if not before. Let's straighten out this whole perception. Let's educate our community well, and let's change how we go forward and allow cannabis to be that vehicle.
I want to bring in another voice in this because my brother, he's chomping at the bit. He's like, look, man, I need to be a part of this. This is my brother Michael in Hotep, who is a scholar. He serves as the host for the African History Network. You can find him on his podcast. Brother Michael, let's bring him in real quick. Brother Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I know you were going to talk about this other thing, Brother Michael, but I know you were like, wait a minute, bro. Hey, Farad, you bring me in. Put me in, coach.
Well, absolutely. How's everybody doing? Hotep to everybody. Good. And peace to the family. So when the doctor mentioned reefer madness, has anybody mentioned, so I just came in right about 4:00. Has anybody mentioned Harry J. Anslinger?
Not yet.
Okay, so you have to, whenever we have this conversation dealing with cannabis or what used to be called hemp, when white people were growing it and trading it and it was a crop, we have to go back to the history of why it was made illegal. Because as long as white people were using cannabis or hemp and they were using it for medicinal purposes, it was no problem. The problem came with Filipinos. The problem came when Mexicans. The problem came when African Americans started using it. Now it became a problem. It became illegal basically in 1937 because of the marijuana prohibition tax. And that's largely because of a man named Harry J. Anslinger, who was a virulent racist. And he was the first chairman of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. And he waged a war against cannabis being legalized. And this was at a time when this is during the Great Depression, number one. Number two, this is after whiskey, after alcohol becomes prohibition, during prohibition, right? So they're looking for another target, and they're looking for another target to keep the funding going, to keep their department intact as well, to keep the department funded. So he goes after marijuana. Now, he consulted with about 30 doctors, and he put forth the notion that marijuana affects people mentally, and he put forth the notion of harmful effects of marijuana. He consulted with about 30 doctors. 29 of them disagreed with him. One agreed with him. He went with the opinion of the one doctor. He testified in front of Congress in 1937. And he said that white women crave black men sexually when white women are high on marijuana. Don't take my word for it. Go read the article from theatlantic.com called How Neuroscience Reinforces Racist Drug Policy. How Neuroscience Reinforces Racist Drug Policy from June 12, 2014. And it goes through and it deals with his congressional testimony. Okay. And he said that sensationalism like this was specifically aimed at a white readership because he was writing articles in newspapers and magazines. You had the movie Reefer Madness. So there was a whole propaganda campaign to scare white people, especially when you have these non-white people using these drugs. Sensationalism like this was specifically aimed at a white readership that might worry about such an unfathomably dangerous ethnic drug getting into the hands of his children. Harry J. Anslinger's congressional testimony directly betrayed his racist motivations to enact federal legislation against marijuana. Quote, he said, there are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S. and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. He said their satanic music, jazz, and swing music result from marijuana usage. He said this marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and any others, end quote. He said this in his congressional testimony. Now, this is why marijuana became illegal. It had nothing to do with causing brain damage or anything like that. As long as white people were using it, it was fine. So I'm all for marijuana being decriminalized. Now, I'm not for recreational usage of marijuana. Because what we have to be careful of is that if you already have a liquor store on every other corner in the African American community to keep us drunk, and you have a fast food restaurant across the street from the liquor store to keep us obese, then if you put marijuana dispensaries on every other corner or in close proximity to the alcohol and the fast food restaurant, then is it there to keep us high as well? And the way you suppress a people is you over medicate them. You keep them drunk. You keep them high. You keep them obese to fight back, to keep them from fighting back against white supremacy and racism. So yes, it should be decriminalized. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are legitimate medicinal purposes for cannabis. Usually you don't smoke it. Usually you put it in food because when you smoke it, it reduces the THC level. So I'm for medicinal marijuana. I'm for it being decriminalized. But we have to be clear with our people that there's a reason why marijuana usage was put into hip hop music over 30 years ago when it was illegal.
I gotta say, I agree with a lot of what you said, but I disagree with the whole not making it a recreational thing. I am a curriculum writer. I am an educator. I am a screenwriter. I was able to write 10 episodes of my script. And guess what? Sometimes I like to do it when smoking my marijuana. And my brilliance has not been dimmed, not one bit. I train other educators. I teach coding. I teach beautiful children how to build video games. And so I just disagree with that. I also live in LA where I drive and I teach in Beverly Hills and I see dispensaries in very, very expensive white neighborhoods. And so when you see that and you see them have the access to those dispensaries, and let's just be clear, dispensaries do not only have smokable weed. Again, they have the topical, they have the gummies, they have the drinks, they have for just for sleep, they have it just for anxiety. You don't have to be, but then also, you know, personally, I also have a brother who's an alcoholic. And I would have much rather seen my brother smoke weed than the effects that alcohol had on him as a young man, and just seeing the health issues that he has now at the age of 34 from alcohol usage. So for me, if you know, whatever his issues are, or from his anxiety and all these other issues that led him to alcohol, I wish that would have led him to marijuana instead of alcohol, because that was way more detrimental to him as a child. Literally, as someone who I remember getting drunk at like in 7th grade, to him being a grown man now who can finally admit that he has an alcohol problem. So I just disagree. Again, that's a stigma that we're fighting.
What I said, sister.
When,
I'm not
we hear
saying
so many
that
people say, you know, weed shouldn't be recreational. That's the stigma right there that I personally have been fighting against, because I'm also ashamed of smoking because of perspectives such as yours.
You misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying
I'm just saying, like, that's just my perspective of,
I'm not saying recreational marijuana should not be legal. I'm saying we have to be careful about using marijuana for recreational purposes. Marijuana, whether it's medicinal or recreational, should have never been made illegal in the first place. Prior to 1937, all of that was legal. I'm not saying recreational marijuana should not be legal. I'm saying we have to be careful about using marijuana recreationally. It has a medicinal purpose. I don't use alcohol.
I like to use it recreationally, and I personally don't think there's anything wrong with anyone wanting to use it recreationally. Okay. Now, I'm not saying if it's something that's creating a situation where you're not getting up and going to work, or, you know, if it's, that's not what I'm saying, but I also am someone who can use it recreationally and still be a brilliant, successful young woman. That's the point that I'm making. So I don't correlate. I don't correlate a dispensary in the community that I correlate the same way that I correlate a liquor store. That's just simply what I'm saying. But I respect your point of view.
Okay. Go ahead, Brother Michael. I'm gonna let you finish, and then I want to get from Dr. Bridget and B.
So it still comes down to education at the end of the day, that, you know, these very emotional and strong opinions that we have are really based a lot on the viewpoints and stigmas that have come about. I would like to think that we've learned a lot from when we've allowed other people to control what goes into our neighborhoods. This is the opportunity for us to control what goes on in our neighborhoods, to educate ourselves about how to use it, to consider tolerance breaks, to consider what level of THC do we actually want to create and disperse in amongst our people. We have an opportunity to see this in a different light, to allow it to not lead to misuse. And keep in mind, there are vices everywhere in every aspect of society and culture and socioeconomics. We always have to be careful with those vices. And the best thing that we can do is educate them appropriately. But if this can also lead to financial opportunities, and get us out of being only 4% of wealth in this country when we are 13% of the population. You know, like I said, I don't know if this is what Dr. Bryan had in mind, but this is the opportunity that lands before us, whether it's him or anybody else. And so, yes, we do need to be careful with it, but this is an opportunity that we can take advantage of, that we can educate our people about, that we can use it in a medicinal manner, and to make sure that we don't misuse it. Because again, the other vices that are available to us readily do much, much more harm than cannabis ever will.
Corinna checked in.
I agree.
Corinna checked in, one of our online culture crew members. Corinna, you said, I think Michael is concerned about how white supremacists will leverage recreational use of marijuana to the Black community's disadvantage. I hear Nira, but I think she speaks to the exception. All right. Corinna, I appreciate you for saying that. B-Fly, I want to get your take on this as we're looking at this, because now we got two sides. These sides are being presented. But what's your take?
You know, I think every day somebody comes out of the closet and says at work, says at church, yes, I partake in cannabis. And the more people who come out of these closets of their own stigmas, we're really able to see a real population of people who are existing and thriving in their life and within the state of the economy as well, you know? So it's like, this is an opportunity for us to learn more and to figure out other ways that we can invest in the cannabis industry. If there is anyone who is really dealing with like long-term chronic pain and has not sought out alternative cannabis medicines, then definitely understand that they are around and plentiful and may help you, you know? And so that's just real. You know, we just need more awareness. More women need to be able to stand up and say, yes, this is my lifestyle. More men need to be able to stand up and say, yes, this is my lifestyle. And so the new data, the real data can come in, because, you know, like when you start lying, it skews the real stats. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you know, we need more. I was a cannabis mom. I'm a cannabis mom, you know? And so it's like, this is important for us to be able to come out of these closets and to show the world how we live, you know, and thrive with cannabis, you know, whether it's flower or tea, topical.
And Dr. Bridget and Michael, Nira, and B, we got a couple of moments. We got about 30 seconds left, but I'm wondering, you know, we are having this conversation, but how do we have, and Doc, I want to hear from you, Brother Michael, I want to hear from you. How do we have a conversation that within our communities, right? Like, you know, you said, for example, Dr. Bridget, you go into the churches when they allow you to come in. But how do we have these conversations, right, in a very real way? Because now that Pastor Brian has put forth this idea, I think it's important for us to this opens up the door, which is why we wanted to have the conversation today. This opens up the door for stigmas to be removed, for education to be learned. So how do we have those conversations without people losing their minds or getting highly emotional and not listening?
So there might be emotion behind it, and there's nothing wrong with that, number one.
That's true.
Regarding the message that came through, about 9 to 13% of people develop cannabis use disorder. It's about the same level of people that develop caffeine addiction. And so it's about education and making sure that people understand that that continuous use does not mean good use. But there needs to always be a balance. So, and that's part of having the medical aspect in there. As far as how can we get this message across and allow people to have open conversations, this is an opportunity, right? Having those church talks is an opportunity. The Cannabis Literacy Club in Atlanta does incredible work to get that message out there as well. The book that we have has been in the hands of churchgoers that then come back to me and say, hey, I didn't know it could really help people with autism and cancer, as well as pain and anxiety and other disorders. So it's about not being afraid to share your story or your experience with people that you might think might be against you, and actually you could be freeing them from the pain and the situations that they're in.
Brother Michael, what does that look like for you, brother? You know, how do we have
first we have to start with the history. First, we have to deal with the history. In 1619, the Virginia Assembly passed legislation requiring every farmer to grow hemp. Okay, hemp at one point also was used as a medium of exchange. Hemp was allowed to be exchanged as legal tender in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland, in these colonies. It was not a problem when white people were using it. Okay, then you go to the early 1900s when you have Mexicans coming to this country. The term marijuana is a Spanish term that was changed. They changed it from cannabis to marijuana to associate it with the negative connotations and the negative feelings that white people in this country had towards Mexicans. That's how you got the term marijuana. And it was Mexicans who introduced into this country basically the usage of the recreational usage of the marijuana leaf. So we have to go back to why this became illegal. Same reason why cocaine became illegal. February 8th, 1914, New York Times had a major article called Negro Cocaine Fiends Are a New Southern Menace, Murder and Insanity Increasing Among Lower Class Blacks because they have taken to sniffing since deprived of whiskey by Prohibition. As long as white people were using cocaine, it wasn't a problem. In this article and around that time, they're asking questions. They feared that black men will rape white women when they were high on cocaine, and they said cocaine gave black men superhuman strength. So they were asking the question: do police officers now have to carry a 45 caliber handgun because a 38 is not powerful enough to kill a Negro high on cocaine? So anytime we have these conversations, we have to deal with the history of how we got to where we are to better understand this and to understand where we need to go from here.
There it is. There it is. Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, I truly, truly appreciate you, as always, sis, for being a part of the conversation. And I know that, like I said, we reached out to Pastor Brian. We're going to do our best to bring him to the table, but I certainly would love to get some more. I'm going to pick his brain, then I'm going to come back to you. But I thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you, Doc. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, folks, my topic today, and I'm going to present this as a fireside chat. One, because we do have an abbreviated show. But two, wanted to get your thoughts and your concerns around this latest situation with Kanye West. And I'm even going to bring up what Amazon had to say in response to criticism about posting a documentary, having it on their platform, the same documentary that got NBA superstar Kyrie Irving in trouble with folks. That documentary, I'm going to share with you what the CEO had to say about that situation. So we're going to get into those words in a little bit. But first, let's start off talking about Kanye West. Now, of course, here on the show, we've talked about Kanye extensively, but he went on another show, InfoWars with Alex Jones, a conservative talk show. Some people would go as far as to say he has conspiracy theories that he often promotes. Kanye went on the show with a hood over his face, folks, and basically did not stop any type of rhetoric against Jewish people. Now, you know, and I know that Kanye has been under great controversy ever since he posted a tweet where he said that he was going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. And as a result of that tweet, he has lost business partners, he has lost industry friends, he has lost money, and so much. Well, people thought that he had said it. At one point, he even, quote unquote, apologized and was hoping to get back into the good graces of folks, I think. But then he went on to talk to Alex Jones. And as a result of that conversation, folks, and I'm just pulling it up here, so I want y'all to join me. But as a result of that conversation, he said some more remarks that has gotten the Jewish community, both on the Republican and the Democratic side, very, very concerned. I want to share with you what Kanye said just in this dialogue that he had with Alex Jones. And I want to hear your thoughts on it. So again, post your comments in our YouTube chat. Now, folks, because of the sensitivity of this subject, we are not going to allow any type of hate speech. We're certainly not going to allow any type of racist rhetoric or euphemisms to be used on this show. So we are going to have, as much as we can, another discussion, a conversation that speaks to the issue more so that speaks more to just the emotion surrounding the issue. So I want to be very clear. I am not going to condemn. I'm not going to condone, any type of use of any type of racial slurs or any type of hate speech on this show. We are going to have a conversation, and I want you to be a part of the discussion. And we trying to figure out what the best way to present this. And I just thought to myself, let's just present this to our online culture crew. Let's have some discussion, because I want to hear what you have to say. So often you hear what we have to say. So often you listen to some of the voices that we bring on, and we truly, truly appreciate that. But then I also want to give space for you to share what you want to say. And if you say something that may not be factual, that's okay, because we have a ton of folks who do the study, who do the research, and who are ready to make sure that we don't walk away from this conversation confused or walk away from this conversation misinformed. All right, let's go into what Mr. West had to say, folks. And I posted this on my story on my social media, that this situation is getting way more serious. This situation is getting way more serious. That this is not a situation that is going to just die down. There needs to be a conversation, folks. And I'm going to just say this. There needs to be a conversation about history. There needs to be a conversation about the relationship between Jewish people and Black people. There needs to be a conversation about power. I mean, there needs to be a number of discussions that have to be held in order for us to even get to a better place and understanding this. We cannot continue to be in a state of denial, nor can we be in a state where we want to be so emotionally caught up in the moment that we don't see the truth of the matter. And this is very important. This is very, very important, because the truth, as the saying goes, as it's written in scripture, will set us free. And I'm at a point, folks, and I hope that you are as well. You share the same sentiment. I'm really at a point where I'm good and looking past all of the rhetoric of a situation, but I want to get down to the truth, because no groups of people, whether you're Black, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Asian or Latino, no group of people are going to make the type of gains and make the type of progress if we continue to hold on to lies, if we continue to be in a state of denial, if we continue to act as if history didn't happen. All right, let me share with you what Kanye West had to say, folks. Let me just pull it up here. And as we do this, again, we're going to hear from you. So Mask Ye goes on an anti-Semitic tirade on InfoWars. This is coming out of the of NPR. According to Kanye West, when he went on InfoWars, it was a 3-hour situation, folks. But this is what he said. And this is what the part of the discussion, we can't get into the whole thing, but here's what part of it that got him an even deeper controversy. Alex Jones said, "You're not Hitler. You're not a Nazi. You don't deserve to be called that and demonized." You know what I'm saying? So that's what he said. This is what Alex Jones said. And Ye, who was appearing on his program along with white nationalist Nick Fuentes, who made headlines when he accompanied Ye to a dinner at Mar-a-Lago with former President Trump last week. Kanye West said, "Well, I see good things about Hitler also. I love everyone." He said this in a response while wearing a fully hooded mask on the set of Jones' show. Kanye continued and said, "And Jewish people are not going to tell me you can love us and you can love what we're doing to you with the contracts and you can love what we're pushing with the pornography," while also condemning Hitler. He added saying, "You can't say out loud that this person ever did anything good, and I'm done with that." Kanye said, "Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler. Also, Hitler was born Christian. As the show headed to a commercial break, Jones told Ye he had a Hitler fetish, to which Kanye responded, "I like Hitler." Again, this is not the time, and again, this is why I want us to have this dialogue, folks, because this is not the time for us to get into a space where we're just talking out the side of our mouths or not understanding history, and more importantly, where we're just talking in a way that's going to be offensive and hurtful. We do have to have a conversation in America today. So I want to get your thoughts on this, folks. What you're thinking about with this situation. DeAndre, you checking in. Good to hear from you. You say, somebody come get Kanye. He does not speak for Black people, but he is putting us back, and they actually love it. DeAndre, you also posted, Kanye is a major disappointment, and I don't even check for him, but many do. The fact that he's constantly in most major tabloids speaks for itself. I appreciate you, DeAndre, for sharing your thoughts. So, okay, let's take a look at this, folks, because so many of you might have some of the similar views as DeAndre. But do you think he's setting us back? Do you think that this conversation about power, about the role and the history of Jewish people and the relationship between Jews and Blacks, do you think that this is about a situation that sets us back? Now, I've said this before, and I'm gonna just reiterate this. Kanye will sometimes say some things of truth, but it's shrouded in so much other stuff that it's hard to differentiate. Like, you might say, oh, well, Kanye, you're not completely wrong on this issue, but then you sit down with a white nationalist, you meet with President Trump and all of those things. It gets shrouded. It gets shrouded. And it's hard to see the situation for what it is. It's hard to determine, well, what is truthful, what is not truthful, because all of us, everyone isn't exposed to that history. Everyone isn't privy to that knowledge of the relationship, not just between Jews and Blacks, the relationship of the sojourn of Black folks in this country. That's why I wore my shirt today. I am African amazing, because what I'm seeing right now, folks, and y'all tell me if y'all seeing it, if you're not seeing it as well. But what I'm seeing right now is that there is a real concern, and some folks will go as far as to say there's an attack on Black consciousness. There's an attack on Black consciousness, right? Because as Kanye is saying what he is saying, right? And in his interview, I saw, I was reading one time that that I think he had another conversation, or it may have been this conversation that he had with InfoWars. But he was making the point that Black folks are part of the Hebrew Israelite community, that Black folks are the real children of Israel. I mean, it gets deep. And, I think of my brother Michael and Hotep. I think of Dr. Carr. I think of so many of the Black scholars who talk about the great history of African people in this country and abroad, and what has happened to us during that treacherous journey from the shores of Africa to the shores of this part of the world that we know as the transatlantic slave trade. Who was involved? The impact that it made, the origin of American business and the origin of capitalism started with that transatlantic slave trade, where Black folks were taken from the shores of Africa, brought to America, and we were made slaves. I mean, this thing is so historical. But here's the thing that I don't want us the approach I don't want us to have, that this is nonsense. That this is nonsense. This isn't nonsense, folks. This is the part of the hidden history that we certainly don't talk about in the classrooms. We don't talk about that part, right? But this is a nonsense because a lot of us aren't exposed to this, even in our adulthood, of understanding the depth of what happened to Black people in this country, right? To the point where we have become from being experiencing chattel slavery all the way up to the present day, to even to this present moment as we speak, folks. That even to this present moment, we are still fighting for our identity. We are still fighting for our sanity. We are still fighting for our own consciousness. All right, let's go back to what you got to say. Sophia, you checked in. You've been very vocal, and I appreciate you, Sophia. You said, I feel like using Kanye as an example is disingenuous because all we have to do is study history in its true form. Dr. Carr, Dr. Clark, and Dr. Cernema are the best to use to navigate through ignorant, through ignorant, and making sure I'm seeing her comment correctly. People who don't read like Kanye. So we do have scholars. And you know what? I'm gonna do my part to use this platform. You know, we've had Dr. Carr on before. We certainly got Brother Michael. We had Dr. Horn on, of course, for the weekly pieces. And I'm going to reach out to all of those men and get some women as well to be a part of these conversations to understand the true history. Because to your point, Sophia, I think that that's necessary. We have a generation, and I would probably go as far as to say there are probably 2 generations of Black folks that really don't know the full history or don't understand the impact that the transatlantic slave trade has made on Black folks. But I would say it's, like I said, 2 generations. I may be, I might be off a little, but I feel like 2 good generations, about over the past 40 years worth of folks that just don't know certain things about our history. So I think that there has to be a re-education process that has to take place in order for us to understand this. And it's not by coincidence. I'm gonna just say that, folks. This is not by coincidence. Yesterday, we talked about LeBron James bringing up the point of Jerry Jones and his photograph in 1957 in Arkansas, LeBron defending Kyrie's, the narrative around Kyrie Irving. We're seeing these things, and we're seeing more Black men in particular, and I'm loving it. I'm all for it, folks. But we're seeing that there's starting to be this resistance, not a fake resistance, not like, just some televised resistance. I'm talking about a very real resistance, an internalized resistance against the stories, the history, the narrative that we have been conditioned to believe is true. There's some resistance now coming not just from the common man like you and me, but resistance from high-profile figures who have so much money and so much power at stake when they assert who they are. There's a phenomenon that's happening right now. Do y'all see that? Y'all see that? There's a phenomenon that's happening right now. And I brought it up yesterday when talking about LeBron, but I'm curious to see how Black men in the NFL respond to not just to the Jerry Jones situation, but more importantly, respond to this sense of consciousness that a lot of Black men and women in this country, we are so sick and tired of the lies. And this is a part of our culture. And even in our community, right, there's some resistance from each other. We have some who are saying, you know what, enough is enough. I'm tired of Black on Black violence. I'm tired of Black folks submitting themselves to cultural norms that are destructive and violent to each other. I'm tired of Black men disrespecting Black women. I'm tired of Black women disrespecting Black men. Like, we are all searching, right? We're all seeking to find who we really are. And that's one of the things that stuck out for me when LeBron was saying his remarks yesterday, that Kyrie is, and he and himself saying that we're all looking to be ourselves. Because for so long, and this is the psychological part about it, and I got to bring my brother, as we having this conversation, it makes me think of so many people that we got to bring on. But we got to talk to a psychologist, because there is some real pain. There is a psychological impact. There's a break from reality that we are finding ourselves to be in, and the children, the grandchildren, those of us who when, you know, our parents, and I don't know about your parents, but I know that in the 70s and the 80s, like we were on the pro-black tip in the late 60s and certainly in the 70s. But then once the 80s came in, once drugs came in, once doors started to open up where we could be in white spaces, right? We started to become in corporate execs. We started to become mayors. We started to run major companies. You know, we started to get into certain spaces that we were locked out of. Then the tone had changed. And now, 40 years later, we're at this point that even though we are in those spaces, our identity is still on the chopping block. There's still being questioned. It's still a problem for America to handle a black man who knows his history, a black woman who knows her history, right? It's still a problem. And this ain't racism. This ain't anti-Semitism. I'm talking about us. Because we, black folks, y'all know it is in our culture, we got to fight for every inch, every year of our history. Every year. All right, let me go to, we're going to take a quick pause. And y'all tell me, am I looking too much into it? I don't think I am. I don't think I'm looking too much into it. But this is what I'm seeing as being part of the controversy surrounding Kanye West and some of the things he's saying. Janelle, you say Ye is definitely having a serious break, and I'm pretty sure intimate soul ties to Kim are involved. Yeah, and I'm sure so too. Definitely. Dr. Nana Abina. Dr. Nana, I would love to hear what you have to say, so I'm glad that you joined us in the chat. You said if Kanye's mama is not around, where are all the mamas in the village? Get your boy, please. Invite your son home and talk to him, please. Real Brooklyn, you say, love that these young influential brothers are voicing concerns that affects our people, but one must take precautions regarding what is said due to who continues to write the checks. And that's the point, Brooklyn, Real Brooklyn. Brother, you know it and I know it. You know it and I know it. I got to take a quick pause, but we're going to talk about that, and then I'm going to share with you what Amazon have to say. But this is our fireside chat today. Again, we have an abbreviated show, so we'll be logging off around about 3:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we wanted to get the conversation. I wanted to end this week on a strong note so we can have some conversations over the weekend and then come back, you know, in a space to have some more discussions on Monday. But let's take a quick pause right now, and then when we'll come back, we got more information to share with you. Stay tuned, folks. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Okay, for our final conversation today, we wanted to talk about someone that our culture crew member Iman Heath enjoys to listen to. So it's like, all right, let me hold this story for Iman.
Hotties in the building.
Because this artist is making waves for so many different reasons. All right, first and foremost, let's talk about the good things. She has been chosen to be the first Black woman to be on the cover of Forbes magazine for their 30 under 30 showcase. So she's one of the top 30 Black people in America that is just making huge amounts of money, because that's what Forbes do. They count people's pockets, make huge amounts of money, and in the same time making an impact in the culture. Now take a look at what Forbes wrote about Megan Thee Stallion. Take a look at this here, folks, and then we bring up some. And I want to ask my team to please let's find the cover of her on the cover. But let me show you what they said. They said Megan. This is coming from Forbes. Megan, who landed on Forbes' annual 30 under 30 list 3 years ago, is emblematic of a brash new class of female hip-hop stars. She and acts like Cardi B, City Girls, Doja Cat, and I'm going to even throw in there, Iman, Glorilla, because I think she's on the rise as well, embracing an unapologetically raunchy style, formerly the exclusive territory of male rappers. Millions of young female fans, whom Megan calls hotties, can't get enough. She's so empowering and so sexy, according to Cardi B. She's mega million Megan. Now, billion-dollar brands, which a decade ago would have wanted nothing to do with Megan's raw, often X-rated songs, are lining up. She has recently signed endorsement deals with Nike, Revlon, Cash App, and Popeyes. She got that hottie sauce at Popeyes. The cultural influence that hip-hop and artists like Megan now have is unmatched, says Stacey Taffet, who is a top marketing executive at Frito-Lay, who partnered with Megan to tout Flamin' Hot Cheetos. She said, our Super Bowl campaign with her outperformed a lot of what we've done in the past and exceeded all our expectations. Forget generic endorsements. Megan is interested only in campaigns that capture her swagger and her style. She said, I cannot fake it. If I'm not naturally into it, I don't want to sell it. Woo! There it is. That's Megan's 30 under 30 first Black woman to grace the cover of Forbes magazine for their 30 under 30 highlight and showcase. All right, Iman, you're a fellow hottie. What do you make of this? Is this good for the culture?
I do believe it's the culture. First of all,
you can't stop smiling.
Because that's my girl. So she's also partnered with Puma and Coach.
I won't say she's solely responsible for Coach becoming popular again, but she did definitely have a strong hand in it. She had a deal with Hot Cheetos as well. And I don't know why Hot Cheetos started getting, on the map again, but she did that as well. Congrats to Megan, first of all. And it isn't just about music. Like the things that she's, like I said, partners with and endorsed, she's made roughly 13.3 million just this year off of ticket sales and other endorsements, her concerts. Like she's doing the damn thing. Under 30. I believe that her style, as far as most of our female rappers now, that raunchy style or that unapologetically I am who I am style is what's hot right now. And she's representing well.
So like I threw in Glorilla because I feel like now there's a pattern, and I don't know whether it started with. I mean, some people will say Lil Kim, right? But Lil Kim is literally like 20 plus years ago when we saw Lil Kim kind of come out with this raunchy style. And Lil Kim, I remember that was back in 95, 94, 95, 96. Y'all remember when Lil Kim came out, she was shunned. She was shunned. She would not have gotten endorsements. She would have not have gotten all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because people really saw her as being like a porn star more so than an artist, a rapper, or businesswoman, right?
Yeah.
So she had to take the hit for the Cardi B's, Megan's, Doja Cat's, City Girls, Glorilla. She took the hits. But now we're seeing something different. And here's my concern. My concern is, Iman, that as great as these women are showing, that they're being rewarded for that raunchy style. That sends the message to younger girls who may be looking up to these women, especially to a Megan, that says, you know what? If I am unapologetically woman, unapologetically black, and unapologetically raunchy and ratchet, I'm going to get rewarded for it. Is that a concern that you think that we should have?
That can be a real concern, but then, like we've said before, it also starts at home. Yeah, you can be your real or authentic raunchy self. You just have to know the place and time for it. So young women who don't have that guidance can have that confused. And like Cardi B has stated clearly, she makes adult music. And I know Megan hasn't come out and said that clearly, but it does start. You have to have type of parameters at home. I do think it does come off, especially on social media and TikTok. If you have this raunchy, loud,
ghetto style.
Yeah, I was only gonna say ghetto because of that period I girl, which is a hot mess. If you have this persona of this loud, wild, ghetto black woman, you'll get endorsements. And I will say, some part of our culture does support and push that. That's how they wind up on the Breakfast Club and getting paid to do interviews and go on shows simply for publicity. They're like the human version of clickbait, basically.
Right.
It can turn into that. That is a concern.
And here's the other part, and I'm not going to beat up on black women, because I think at the end of the day, y'all are trying to figure out the best way to get through, right? To make it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the crazier black women, the crazier you are as a young black woman, the more likes, the more acceptance. You know, I'm thinking about what's the
Krishan Rock and
you know
Taraji.
Krishan and Blueface.
It's
like look, I see Blueface. He got caught up in some attempted murder situation. Mm-hmm. Krishan, like I saw a couple of videos, she's throwing up, puking all over the place, and
she might be pregnant. That's the new.
But I'm just saying, like, and that may be so, but it just looks so crazy, right? It just looks so crazy, and on social media, you getting likes, you getting all of this, you getting new fans, you getting new watchers, and blah blah blah. But there's a downside for that. There's a consequence to that, and it's like we become. Just like we said in the earlier segment about Herschel Walker being a minstrel show, it's my thing is like, yo, and I'm not saying Megan is making black women a minstrel show, but it's like Megan is doing her music thing, she does the business thing, but then you got the younger sisters, it's like, I'm gonna take this shit to the next level.
like purposely here in Baltimore, Krishan, her dad, and Blueface, they get into it, and he apparently Blueface knocked out her father, or then it turned out her sister came out and said it was a skit. It was just for views and likes, because Instagram pays you for the more view, and TikTok, the more views and interaction you get from viewers. Once you hit a certain amount, you do get paid for it.
Right.
And unfortunately, in our culture, we do like drama. Drama is entertaining to us. Love and Hip Hop still on VH1.
Damn.
I was watching that in middle school. So it's our culture feeds off of that drama, but I definitely don't think Megan, we would solely blame. Even take me if I wasn't a fan, I wouldn't solely say she's the reason why these girls act like this.
No. I wouldn't put that on her doorstep. This happened before. She comes out of that culture.
Right.
But she's not the originator of the culture in that respect, right? So I definitely wouldn't do that. All right, let's go to some of our online culture crew members and hear what folks got to say. Mingly Natasha Church, you said she's making money, but why she stay on social media beefing with everyone? Why is she worrying about everything that's said about her? Because she's young.
Because people keep saying she's a liar about this whole Tory Lanez situation. And if I was her, I would be tired of hearing the same thing. When it comes to this, her old record label, trying to get the deal cut from them, people always have something to say about her. So as a human, and we've all fell victim to it, those comments can get to us sometimes. So we're gonna say something back.
Right. She don't want to show she's no punk.
That too.
And speaking of Tory Lanez, I think the trial starts either today or this week, if I'm not mistaken. The trial kicks off the trial will be very, very soon at the beginning of that regarding the shooting between her and Tory Lanez. But I think that I'm happy to see her grow. I'm happy to see, I already knew that when I first heard Megan Thee Stallion, I was like, oh, she about to blow up. She about to just blow up, right? Now she's becoming, not only has she blown up, she's becoming the industry model. And it's interesting because Cardi is on a different path. And this is the funny thing. And I don't know if anybody really studied the path that Megan has taken versus the path that Cardi has taken. We know Cardi wild. We know she wild, right? But there's still something stabilizing her, which I think is her family life. Megan is not married, but she is in a committed relationship with what's the brother's name? Party, right. So she's in a committed relationship. She talks all that stuff, but she's in a committed relationship. Same thing with Cardi. She married with children. She got a whole family. So it's right. So it's interesting that these women, kind of put themselves out to be a certain type of women, but then at the same time, they're very conservative and very traditional. And saying, look, I'm going to, have a rootedness. I'm going to have a family. I'm going to have a mate with me throughout this whole process. And I'm going to, still do some things that are traditional. I'm not so far to the left. And I think that's interesting. I think that's
the part we forget to look at. We forget to look at their totality. I think you hit the nail right on the head. You can be that ratchet, loud, raunchy woman when it's time to, but then you also have that family aspect where they're calm. I remember Cardi was on live and she was playing her music, and then when Culture walked in the room, she turned it off. So it's a balance. We gotta look at the balance. I do think Cardi and Meg, for example, do balance it well. Besides Nicki Minaj wanting to beef with everybody, I think she does balance it well.
She's another one.
Yeah, we forget that part. It's a balance to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we got a comment that says that this ratchetness leads to us having toxic relationships or toxic friendships. What's your take on that as well, Iman?
It can. We just said with common and particular same interest. If I'm loud, raunchy, and ratchet, and you loud, raunchy, and ratchet, I might be loud, raunchy, and ratchet at the club, but you might be loud and raunchy all the time. So because we have that common interest or likeness, that's when that friendship starts, and then come to find out you way more wild than what I thought.
Right.
Again, you didn't take that time and effort to know that person. So I do see that. It can develop toxic friendships.
Now, here's the other thing very quickly, and as we close out, the other thing is that Megan is on a pedestal right now. She's working, of course, with the likes of a Beyonce and other, heavyweights within the music genre. She's certainly ventured out into TV and film, doing some things. Like, she's not in those spaces anymore because she understands that she came from those spaces, but she can't go back to those spaces. Talk to us. What do you think of that? Because some people may listen to it and be like, "Oh, she's still down in Houston in the basement. She can't go down there no more."
She even graduated from TSU, so
right.
she's not just this ratchet, loud, crazy female. And I do believe she understands she's not who she was when she first started. She's doing things with Marvel. She's not who she was when she first came in the game with that feature with Wale. So I do think she embraced it, and she's embracing it very well. And I wish her much success because she's doing the damn thing.
Well, congratulations on being on Forbes list. I hope that, as she grows in her artistry, she continues to grow in her service to the people. I know that she speaks on a number of issues related to women, domestic violence issues. I think she's also kind of spoken on a little bit of the reproductive health. Cardi has certainly been vocal about issues from everything from prison issues to a whole bunch of stuff, to poverty. I hope that these sisters, now that they have a platform, now that they have the resources, that they do something with them, and help to tell people, to teach people, like, that's one thing I do on record, but in real life, you got to make certain choices to get to a certain point. Because, Black women, y'all are at a very, as Black people, we're at a crossroads, but Black women, you're so important to the next phase of our growth and development and progress in this country, that we need y'all mind, body, and spirit to be intact. You know what I'm saying? Just like y'all need us as Black men to be intact, we need the Black women to be intact. And so I hope these sisters start to really embody that. And yes, you can have, like one of our culture crew members, you don't like music, it's sexy music. If you don't like sexy music, don't listen. If you don't like the music, you don't have to listen. But there should be some growth in the music. I listen to Traumazine. There's some growth. I love the song Her. I love the song she talks about anxiety. Like, I want to hear growth from a Black woman. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear love from a Black woman. I want to hear vulnerability from a Black woman. I want to hear the very facets that make Black women beautiful and great. So congrats to Megan Thee Stallion. And Iman, I can see you being in those spaces very soon.
It's
what I'm saying? The things that you be doing.
It's coming.
I can see you in those spaces very soon. So when that happens, we're going to be talking about you on Forbes and how you're making waves all across the industries that you're a part of. Iman, thank you so much for being so good for the culture, being on the show, and doing your damn thing each and every week. We truly appreciate you.